Two. And we are recording. Okay, I'll have to edit that out. Anyway, it is a bright and beautiful morning here in the Midwest as we're moving closer and closer to the advent of October. And October is that marvelous time where the truth about A Course in Miracles really gets exemplified in all of our trappings that we put up, our Halloween ghosties and goblins and skeletons, and looking at death through that eye of humor and scoffing at the mighty powers of death. So how are you this morning, Barret?
Well, that's quite an intro, Chris.
Well, you know how I can be wordy, but...
Yeah, I'm doing great, Yeah, death, let's get to it.
Well, you know, you go to Great America and they've turned it into a roller coaster ride, so I think that's very appropriate, especially that first fatal plunge that we all take.
I actually do like that. I like that first plunge, you know. And I've realized over the years that the best way to get that, the most scariness and excitement, is to ride in either the front roller coaster or the very back. Because, you know, the front one, you're hanging over the edge looking for a while before you actually really start going. So, you know, it's worth a little longer wait once you get up to the front to go for that. That's my recommendation for people.
So you want to crowd the lines and elbow people and shove your way into that front car, and then you can really experience the true essence of that moving over the top of your personal reality and discovering, oh my God, I didn't realize what I had created.
I agree. Yes, it's all about me. That's really what I'm saying. It's always about me. So as long as I get what I want, then it's all good.
Well, then there's Mick Jagger, who sums it all up. You don't always get what you want, but you do get what you need. So,
yes. The wisdom of the songs, as we were just talking about, songs and movies and how they all reflect these deeper truths. If we're willing to kind of, you know, as Jesus said, have whoever has two good ears, let him hear, you know.
That's true. Yeah. And I noticed the latest breaking news this morning is that Betty White is still alive. So how about that?
I think Betty White is pretty awesome. So I'm glad to hear that. That lifts me up.
Yes, I think she is amazing. And I can remember when she was all 1950s kind of homebody soul and cooking in the kitchen, and she had her own program back then. And her persona, you know, she's gotten saltier with the years, and now she's not afraid to F-bomb her way through an interview or any kind of dialogue. So she is a very tenacious woman and a beautiful example, I think, for humanity.
Yeah. Well, it gives us all courage and to know, hey, you know, keep kicking for quite a long time. So might as well do it. Just like George Burns, right? Just keep smoking those cigars and have a good time.
Yes, and whatever it was that Hugh Hefner used to smoke, that turned out to be a good thing for him. He got to attain the mighty age of 99. So I find it interesting how it does seem like we're pushing back that age barrier. You know, in the 70s, when somebody hit 75, it was like a cause for celebration. And now when people hit 90, it's like, well, you know, I'm looking forward to that 100 mark, and a lot of people are making it. So the world is changing, and it's fascinating to watch how it changes.
Well, maybe that is a reflection of the idea in the Course that there, excuse me, there is no death. You know, as you started right off with death, this section that we're talking about, and the Course is actually talking about death. Here in the Song of Prayer on page 18, last time we were talking about how we can experience death as a very peaceful, gentle thing, that it doesn't have to be a burden. And so then as we kind of go into this next paragraph, Jesus is talking about, well, basically the ego doesn't like that kind of death. So here's what he has to say. This is not death according to the world, for death is cruel in its frightened eyes and takes the form of punishment for sin. How could it be a blessing then? And how could it be welcome when it must be feared? What healing has occurred in such a view of what is merely opening the gate to higher prayer and kindly justice done? Death is reward and not a punishment, but such a viewpoint must be fostered by the healing that the world cannot conceive. There is no partial healing. What but shifts illusions has done nothing. What is false cannot be partly true. If you are healed, your healing is complete. Forgiveness is the only gift you give and would receive. So here he's talking about, again, this idea that when we have done all of our lessons, when we have healed all of the pain and the fear and the guilt within the mind, death becomes nothing but a gentle next step and a real blessing. Like it's not a blessing because this world is still a burden. It's a blessing because we really know that there's nothing here to fear. And when we really get that, then what is this world but a gentle dream? And it's a gentle dream that leads to our complete awakening into truth. So that's what we're going for.
Absolutely. And the thing I like about the way the Song of Prayer and other parts of the Course approach the idea of death is that it's after you have been completely made aware of the fact that this body is simply a sense of confinement. And as you start to work on expanding yourself to recognizing yourself as who you truly are, you begin to experience these little flashes of the infinitude, the whole idea that you are the universe, that you are not bounded by these limitations. And all of a sudden you begin to realize the body is a self-confined kind of experience that you have created for yourself. And a part of you has never been comfortable with that. So a part of you has been systematically chopping away at your comfort in the body. And that's why we have these illnesses and these, deformations and all of these misdirected energies that we place into the body, because you know that you are not limited by the range of your fingertips and your toe tips and all that sort of thing, that who you truly are can't truthfully be enclosed and confined in such a small arena. So once you start realizing the truth of this, then death is not really death as the ego has presented it to us, but it is kind of a process of evaporating, watching the body evaporate as you begin to expand your sense of self. So it turns into this glorious passage where you're simply outgrowing these limitations that you have imagined are real and that you have to address.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, as we go through this world, it really seems like our body is real, right? It seems like our body is the truth. But what we're learning is that it never has been, it is not now, it never will be in the future. And for most of us, when we first hear these ideas, that's usually awful, right? I have like this idea that we're not our body. Like, oh my God, well, what am I? Am I nothing then? Because that's what the ego would say. If you're not your body, at least you're something. If you're not your body, you're going to be nothing. But what we come to see is when we let go of our belief that the body is what we are, we start to open up into everything. So rather than it being something fearful and something to be avoided, it becomes something joyful and something to be welcomed, as this paragraph has been talking about. And it's not always an easy shift from that, like, oh my God, I need this body. If I don't have it, what am I? To, oh, let me open up into this wonderful love that I am. But it's a shift that we all want to make, even if initially we often sort of resist it.
Absolutely, yes. As we're continuing here, uh, this next paragraph has got some kind of juicy ideas in it also. It says, false healing rests upon the body's cure, leaving the cause of illness still unchanged, ready to strike again until it brings a cruel death and seeming victory. It can be held at bay a little while, and there can be brief respite as it waits to take its vengeance on the Son of God. Yet it cannot be overcome until all faith in it has been laid by and placed upon God's substitute for evil dreams, a world in which there is no veil of sin to keep it dark and comfortless. At last the gate of heaven opens and God's Son is free to enter in the home that stands ready to welcome him and was prepared before time was and still but waits for him. And, I think that that has been a major theme in my life because I have wrestled with, different situations with the body, and I've gone through 3 different occasions where it appeared that I died, and like the Energizer Bunny, I popped back up again. But the truth of it is, when we're trying to heal the body, we just set a process in motion where you patch one area of the boat and it springs a leak in a different area. And that just goes on and on and on. And it's a brilliant trap when you really recognize what's happening, because this is how the ego operates. And that fraction of the mind that the ego is in command of, it loves to keep you engaged. And if you're engaged with, oh, I've got appendicitis, and oh, I've got colitis, and oh, I've got this, and I've got that, then you are missing the opportunity to experience the true sense of self. So every body ailment becomes a distraction. And that's why repeatedly throughout the course, we're given this idea of looking at what's wrong with the problems of the body and addressing them as, not anything major, not anything significant, merely a diversion that should be stopped and addressed. And ultimately, as with many teachers that have gone through the journey in front of us, like Mary Baker Eddy and like Ernest Holmes and Joel Goldsmith, they have arrived at that plateau where the body simply, to them, is so irrelevant that it doesn't manifest all these things. It doesn't. The ego doesn't have that power over us anymore, over our belief systems and over our knowledge of the truth. So ultimately, what we're working toward is achieving that plateau in our forward movement, where we have withdrawn all of our attention to the body to the degree that we're no longer manifesting all of this, the sicknesses, the ills, the misdirected energies that keep us perpetually trying to fix the body, which is the illusion that can never be fixed.
Yeah, and I think, a lot of people talk about kind of the wonder of the body, that the body is so amazing, or things like that. And I even had that perspective earlier in my life. They talk about how it's amazing how it all works together. But if we really look at it, it was not such a great creation. I mean, we've made this body that is bound to die. It's bound to get sick. It's bound to suffer pain. Like, oh, this is not really such a good plan. I mean, it's a good plan if what you want is suffering, because suffering is going to come out of this experience of believing that the body is your truth. but it's not such a great plan for just being at peace or just being happy or just being in a state of love. As you were saying, Chris, this body serves as a constant distraction from our deeper truth. And obviously, we still want to take care of it. And if you have an illness, do whatever is appropriate. Go to the doctor, take your medicine, go see a healer, whatever feels right to you. But what we can start to do is take it less and less seriously. And as you were saying, Chris, to not really make any of it a big deal. And just that mental perspective all of a sudden can open us up to the deeper truth, even as we're maybe still going through the physical symptoms, even as we're still challenged by some sense of limitation because of what's happening. It gives us a very different way to experience even the illness or the injury itself. And I think that's kind of an amazing shift to make.
And it's a definite necessary shift that we all have to make. And that whole idea of living in this wonderful machine that is a source of amazement and infatuation, that's thinking that is based on the ego's evaluation of reality. But when you take two steps back from that, like you said, Barret, an invisible, teeny tiny little microbe can ravage the body, overnight, literally. And if you don't believe that, think about the last time you had a cold. Think about the last time you got a parasite, all those things. And so then we begin to come to clarity, to come to our senses and realize that we've put all of our faith in the most fragile thing probably in creation. It is so vulnerable in so many ways. It can be punctured, it can be blown up, it can be, pillaged and raped by these infinitesimal forms of, I guess you'd say, thoughts that are anti-life, because it really is what they are. Germs and all of the subsequent effects of germs are just anti-life thoughts. And if we can get that kind of clarity in our thinking, then we take a step to a higher plateau. So every tiny step is, gained height, and that's how we have to pursue life on every level. Stop worrying about how much further up the mountain you have to go, and be glad for every, millimeter that you make in forward movement.
Yeah. So we stop sort of worshiping the body as we really get these ideas and see with more and more clarity that the true life is not life in the body. The true life is this endless love of heaven. It is our deepest state of being. But in order to experience that, we basically need to sort of evolve or go through our own cocoon process to turn from the caterpillar into the butterfly. Our spiritual healing is our cocoon process to emerge into a state of a deeper awareness of God's love. So the cocoon itself is working on whatever is upsetting you in this world. Again, we've been talking about the body and its illnesses a lot today. That might be where your work is. So you just keep doing this practice of forgiveness with everything that happens with your body. Maybe it's a relationship, maybe it's a job, maybe it's political problems, whatever it is that really seems to be causing you upset. To realize that that's never the real cause of the upset, that it always comes back to some belief that you're separate from God. And that once you heal that belief in separation, there are no problems because there aren't any problems in truth, right? So it was only ever healing a false perspective. So yeah, it's not always easy work, but it is good work, right? It's the only work that's really worth doing. And like you said, a millimeter at a time sometimes, hey, that's fine. As long as I just keep climbing up that hill. At some point, you're going to get to the peak, and that's all you need to do.
That is a fact. And this next paragraph advances us even further with that understanding about what true healing is. So I'm going to go ahead and pick up the pace there as we go into this next section?
Great, yeah. So the next section is called Separation versus Union. And Jesus says, false healing heals the body in a part, but never as a whole. Its separate goals become quite clear in this, for it has not removed the curse of sin that lies on it. Therefore it still deceives, nor is it made by one who understands the other is exactly like himself. For it is this that makes true healing possible. When false, there is some power that another has, not equally bestowed on both as one. Here is the separation shown. And here the meaning of true healing has been lost, and idols have arisen to obscure the unity that is the Son of God. So, speaking of an illness, if you have a pain in your kidney, well, it might seem like real healing is to have the pain in the kidney stop. But what Jesus is saying here is if you just heal the level of that problem, the body in a part, but never as a whole, you're not really waking up from the deeper issue. And so, sure, do whatever you need to for your kidney. Go to the doctor, get that kidney stone taken care of, whatever it is. But also, as you do that, realize that the deeper healing is on the level of mind. And the deeper healing always, always, always is the undoing of the thought of separation from God and opening up to the truth of oneness and unity and love. And we just keep doing that again and again and again with whatever is showing up in our life. That becomes our classroom to learn that same lesson in maybe a different form.
Absolutely. And, I know people who are making their own personal rosary with kidney stones. They just don't want to just step back from that idea that's not the true sense of healing. Healing individual parts is reinforcing the idea of duality. So we really have to approach healing from that level of recognizing not only that we are not a body, but we are not separate in any way, shape, or form. We are at all times one with that which is perfect. And, that's why it's good to start each day not getting up and saying, how do I feel? But getting up in the morning and saying, God, how do you feel? Because I know that you're leading the way. I'm going to be feeling what you feel. And if you can have that revelation every morning that God feels awesome, then maybe your days will start out with a little less stress and a little more advanced toward harmony and peace and joy.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And I think, using that idea or really anything that gets you into a sense of connection to God, appreciation to God, love for God, these ideas really move us into the perspective of truth. And that's something we just want to keep practicing.
Absolutely, yes. Healing to separate may seem to be a strange idea, and yet it can be said of any form of healing that is based on inequality of any kind. These forms may heal the body, and indeed are generally limited to this. Someone knows better, has been better trained, or is perhaps more talented and wise. Therefore, he can give healing to the one who stands beneath him in his patronage. The healing of the body can be done by this because in dreams, equality cannot be permanent. The shifts and change are what the dream is made of. To be healed appears to be to find a wiser one who, by his arts and learning, will succeed. So we're being told that healing is a process of making small steps. And you're always looking for somebody who has that superior position. Now, what you want to seek out is someone whose superior position is rooted in higher consciousness. In other words, the average doctor is going to, again, see all of these fragmented parts and try to reconcile them. So you need to search around for a doctor or a practitioner who has a unified vision of who you are, not seeing you as a broken leg or as a ruptured appendix, but seeing you as a whole being, and they can help lift you up in that momentary healing for this momentary problem. But ultimately, the whole journey is like a series of train cars connected, going from the back to the front. And as you are being healed, you will undoubtedly have opportunities to share or to extend that blessing to those around you and help lift them up. So healing is a fascinating part of the journey, simply because we're being called upon not only to heal ourselves, but to heal those who are around us. And the only way we can do this is not to cling to that pompous supposition that we created ourselves. We have to get over that illusion and be willing to accept healing from Jesus, from the Christ, and let it stream down. And that's the only way true healing can occur. It's like a waterfall, a very magical kind of waterfall flowing from one level to the next level to the next level. And that's the way that we approach healing if we're really committed to working with the Course.
Yeah, and then to know, even when you find that right doctor, that right practitioner, that is a connection for you, that even they are not healing you, right? Because healing is really just a reflection of a right-minded truth. And if you're willing to make that shift, whatever form is necessary in your life will show up, and it will move through. But it's never the form that is the cause of healing. The healing happens in the mind, and then the outer form actually just comes forward to represent that inner shift. So just know that the mind is always the cause. When the Course talks about cause and effect, it's talking about the mind as cause, everything else is the effect. So, for example, a healing of any kind, whether it's a spontaneous healing or whether it's going through the kind of regular routes, the actual cause of the healing was in the mind, and then these other things just sort of played out the way that they were supposed to. So I think as we go forward again with whatever's going on with our bodies, if we remember that, it really helps us keep things in the right perspective.
It absolutely does. And it's again, it's a journey of shedding a false identity. And that that is the core of all of the issues that we're confronted with, is that we have this false sense of identity that we are being asked to let go of. And, that idea that we could usurp the power of God and create ourselves in whatever image and likeness we wanted really is such a flawed thought. And it has so many tumble down effects. So it ends up creating all these different miseries that we have given ourselves permission to accommodate. Think about it. It's the only way that you can be sick is because you have given yourself some kind of permission to accept this as a substitute for relinquishing that sense of truth and knowing that you were created by God and that you did not create yourself and you did not create God.
It's true. And really what we're doing is, instead of trying to continue to claim that mantle of creating ourselves, we're getting better and better at relinquishing that and realizing that we were trying to sit on the quote unquote throne of God, and instead of trying to keep doing that, we turn it around and we say, no, hey, you be in your rightful place, God, and help me to know that I am one with you, I am of you, but I don't need to try to pretend that I'm the top dog or the head of the household, so to speak.
Exactly. It's all that story of the fallen angel. We are the fallen angel because we're not willing to fully integrate that belief in God being the source of all life and of us. So it was delightful this morning chatting with you, Barret. We've had a good discussion. We'll pick up in another week with this next section. So
Sounds great, Chris. Yeah, I really enjoyed this too. And yeah, I'm glad we just keep doing these. There's so much beauty in the course, and it's really just a joy to me to explore it with you and to talk about it and connect with all these other people as you guys watch it too. So yeah, it's been really nice.
great. Well, and eventually we're going to have, an episode where my phone doesn't ring. And that probably will be that point of the rapture. So we all have something to look forward to.
Actually,
Anyway,
what was happening when that came, it just shook me a little. I'm like, oh, well, maybe I'm just gonna wake up in heaven here. No,
see, the rapture can come in many different forms. And two on the rooftop, one will be taken, the other left behind.
oh man, that's so sad.
Well, I'll see you in 1 week. Have safe travels, and just continue to love life.
I will. You too. Enjoy this beautiful fall that we're having.